Hello, good afternoon. It's Mel Bundock here, and this is episode 5 of Big Vision TV. And today I am joined by Julia Black. She is the founder of Explorium, which is, I'll let Julia tell us a bit more about what it is in a minute. So Big Vision TV, every week I'm going to be bringing to you somebody who has a big vision, is living their big vision, and is certainly moving towards their big vision. And they're going to be telling you about the kind of obstacles they've overcome, the challenges, because my thing is that I want people to know that everyone has a big vision, and that you too can, if you've got a seed or an idea, that's something you want to bring to life, then I want my guests to inspire you to believe that, you know, anything is possible. So without further ado, Julia, welcome. Thank you so much for being on the show. I'd love you to just introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about you.
Yeah, well, I'm Julia Black, and I'm CEO of Explorium, and I call myself an accidental educationalist, I guess, because I've found myself running or developing a framework around learning, which kind of, for me, is how our children should be learning in the 21st century. But I only got into that because education wasn't working for my children. So I kind of fell into it. That's why I call myself an accidental educationalist.
Yeah, and I'm hearing this, so obviously being a parent myself, and I see the own differences in my children. And, you know, my children don't particularly have extreme learning differences, and they do quite well in the state school system, but I know that there are many parents who struggle with this. And, you know, there is nothing more important as a parent that your children are safe, happy and secure. And they spend an awful lot of time in school. And if they're not happy, they're not thriving, it is heartbreaking. I know just from kind of the minor disappointments and upsets that my children have, you know, just run of the mill stuff, how heartbreaking they are. But if your children is coming home feeling that way every single day, then, you know, clearly something has to be done. So tell me a little bit about your experiences, about your daughter.
Yeah, so I guess it's probably not what people expect, because actually my daughter is a high academic achiever. And so when she was reading before she started school, you know, sort of 3 or 4, and so I didn't think there was going to be any problems because we've got dyslexia in my family. And so I was kind of relieved. It's like, well, clearly she's not got, you know, dyslexia. So that was really great. But what I was surprised at is like the brakes that sort of slammed on her learning. So she kind of went from being really hungry, as all our toddlers are, you know, however their brains are wired, this hungry, happy learner, you know, just really wanting to run at her own pace. And then literally it just did feel like whoosh, you know, someone had put the brakes on and they said, you can't go there yet. So I kind of just started, I hadn't ever thought about education. You know, I've gone right up to a master's level. I loved school. It worked for me. You know, I love being there, and, you know, I'm definitely a hungry learner as well. So I just hadn't anticipated it. And what I did is I just was 4, so she's summer born as well. So it was really young that she started. And I just kind of phoned up the county council one day and said, okay, this isn't kind of working out. Full-time school's not working out for my daughter. Can't I just stagger her entry? Expecting them to say no. And they're just like, yeah, you can. It's called flexi schooling. And so I was like, oh, okay, perfect. And so that's what we did. We kind of flexed the system, I guess, to make it work. And just having that one day out a week gave her that opportunity to be that 4-year-old again and dance and play and use her imagination and things like that. And then I started getting very involved in the school to bring creativity into the school.
Yes.
Reach a point as she grew older, by age 7. And by now I'd kind of discovered Ken Robinson and, you know, everything he was saying about school. I'd started reading, you know, Guy Claxton's books, you know, what is the point of school? So I'd started my own understanding of education to try and understand what was going on. And I was a governor. And by age 7, she just said, Mum, my learning is so fenced in. I can't be creative. I can't use my imagination. And it got sort of progressively worse. So as it got progressively worse for her, my involvement in trying to solve this problem kind of grew. And that's got the big vision of just like, well, it's definitely not only my daughter, and you know, and then later on my son, who this is obviously a problem for. There's millions and millions of children around the world who feel like school is stopping them learn, basically. So I really want people to think that there's a tendency to think if your child's doing okay in school and getting the grades, they're all right. And I guess I'm reframing that and say, I really want you to look and go, if they can get grades easily, you need to be looking at their resilience and ability to fail, really. So learning differences is to me, you know, we all learn differently and our brains are all totally wired. You know, we talk about neurodiversity, but it's as important for those who are succeeding in our system to look at if it's working for them, just as much as for those who it really obviously isn't.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I absolutely love this conversation. Now, because traditional school is pretty much the same all over the world, isn't it? Kind of kids sat in rows, you know, put your hand up, ask permission to answer a question, and you know, very kind of, it is sometimes, even my son comes in and says, you know, what is the point of learning this thing that I'm never going to use again? And maybe it's got me questioning that actually he isn't. He is getting by, and maybe this is a bit of a wake-up call for me, that maybe there is more that he needs. So what would you say to somebody like me who, you know, he doesn't hate school, there's no problems, he does as he's told, we don't have any you know, behavior, or there's no issues, parents' evening, he's doing really well, he's a lovely boy, but he's not particularly enthused by it. What would you say to somebody like me?
Yeah, so I would say you're really in the same situation as I am. You know, my children are excelling academically. The school that they go, they're both now in ordinary good state academy, and their teachers say exactly that same thing. You know, like, they're fine. They wouldn't notice. The school wouldn't notice that anything was wrong. And probably if I didn't know what I did, and we didn't have such an open dialogue around learning in our family, and my two hadn't tasted what learning is through Florian, I probably wouldn't as a parent. I just think, like, well, great, my daughter's getting the 8s and the 9s, you know, my son's on the platinums, fantastic. But what you're looking out for is are they passionately following something that they love to do? Have they got, we talk about it as being a switch, have they got something that you can literally tell when they're doing that thing, the light comes on, you know, you see it in their eyes, it's like the lights have come on. And are they being able to dive deep into that, really use and flick on that switch and go deep into that learning? Because you want them to have that. And so for my daughter, for example, it's writing, and for my son, it's digital creation. And so basically they both came out of school around, well, my daughter came out at age 9, when basically she told me, Mum, you may as well send me to prison every day. That's what it's like. And it wasn't just a flippant comment. You know, I'd worked so hard, but I was starting to see the impact on her mental well-being. And we see this a lot. You know, I've now worked and learnt alongside hundreds and hundreds of children, all shapes and sizes, different ways their brains are wired, different academic abilities. And actually, some of the children that are concern me most are those high achievers, because they're so fragile in terms of if they get anything wrong. We talk about learning out towards your edges, and their edges are really close to them because they can do it. They can do what the academic, you know, our old way of thinking of what education is. They can play the system. And especially, it sounds like your son, who's not, you know, he's not getting angry. He's turning up. He's doing the work. But has he got a switch that is kind of flicked on? Because the 3 keys that I want you to start looking at for your children is, are they tapping into passion, mindset, and time? Because those 3 keys that I talk about being the new success path that they need to be on. Because the world, there's these trends, and I'm talking about this in my upcoming video series, where I'm going to be exploring how you grow that divergent genius. Because anybody who's listened to Ken Robinson's famous talk school, our children are born creative geniuses, and then school educates it out of them. And I've seen that. I've seen it.
Yeah.
It does, and really, really quickly. And this is what is frightening for us as parents, that we can see that our children start school happy, hungry, inspired, motivated to learn, and very, very quickly they realize it isn't about learning. It's about giving the answers somebody expects from them. It's about sitting down on that carpet for ages when they're a 4-year-old and they want to move about or run and explore. And it's about going to the toilet only when you're allowed to go, all of these rules. And what can happen is our children conform really quickly. So I definitely would say, watch out for that. Or they don't. They say, no, this jacket, this blazer does not fit me. I'm not wearing it. And of course, that's when we start to attribute labels. We start to have the calls in from the school saying something's wrong with your child, maybe get it investigated. You go down that route because you're trying to understand, like, why can't my child learn like everyone else's? And what's been so exciting, I guess, for me, and really gives me hope, is that I've worked with children like that who have been failing, so Ollie is one of the children that has inspired me so much, because he was 13 when I met him, and he'd been failing every day in school up to year 9, feeling stupid. His brain doesn't work. Do you know what I mean? Absolutely going in and in his own words, being not being the person that he wanted to be. He said, the person I want to be has never made it into school. And within 12 hours of us kind of having him in our creative learning center, he was tasting success for the first time ever, being Ollie. And that is what's really exciting. And then the first time that year, I think probably about 6 months in, he got his best school report ever. So what I want parents to see is that our obsession with the grades, the tutoring market, of English and maths and getting them through the SATs or 11 plus, or getting them to GCSE, it's a multi-billion-pound company, and we're all caught up in fear that, well, what if my child doesn't get those grades? And I guess what I want to be telling people is that's not what you want to be worried about. Out there in the big wide world, there are thousands and thousands of children with grades, with good grades. What we're needing those children to be who are they? Who are they, so that they walk through my door as an employer and they stand out, because I'm not interested in the grades, and so that's what I'd be saying to you, Mel, and anyone else, is give your child opportunity and time to go deep with their learning. So check how deep are they learning? Are they doing enough to get by? Are they fine, but are they really on fire? So that's what, I really want parents to hear, that we can think that, well, school's fine, this system works for me. And if you truly believe that, it's there. But for all those parents who are thinking there has to be something more,
Yes,
it has to be more.
Totally. And it's funny, actually, because I love what you're saying. And I'm so happy that there is someone like you in the world to tackle this thing. And, I just want to applaud you for doing what you're doing. Now, it's funny because with my clients, I see them having been through all this. My clients are fully grown adults, and I'm helping them to tap back into that big vision. What is it you've always wanted to be, do, or have? And just yesterday, with my Create the Dream workshop, I'm getting people to literally go back to their childhood. What did you love to do? What were you told that you can't do? And so I'm kind of I'm at the other end to kind of gather up the pieces and to help people. Yes, you can go back and do this, but it would be so much easier if they are sorted out in childhood.
Yeah, and I'm doing exactly the same. So that's exactly one of the first questions we ask children. It's like, what do you love to do? What would you get out of bed every morning to learn about? And what was frightening for me, so we ended up I had my creative learning center, and we ended up actually on a school site, on a secondary school site. And that's when I talk about seeing the beast of our education system up really close and personal, because it was frightening, because so many children, 11, 12, 13, in those crucial adolescent years where their brains are restructuring apart from anything else, it was like they were just switched off. It was like they were numb to who they were. they just didn't know. They didn't know what they love to do. Now, I know how that feels as an adult. I lost that, I guess, when I became a mum. Do you know what I mean? Because suddenly it was like, well, I'm a mum. And it was like, well, who am I? And I know that state, you lose your sense of identity. And I feel it's really, really crucial. I think that's what our current system is doing for our children. It's taking away their identity. And at 4, at 5, at 6, and, in adolescence years where their brains are restructuring and they should be exploring, who am I now? But more importantly, who could I be?
Yeah.
Because, you're unpicking the end result of our children, our adolescents, our young adults spending potentially 14 years or more switched off from who they are and who they could be. And as we saw with Ollie, and anyone who wants to follow up our story, they'll see his testimony so inspiring, because we did it like that. We got his lights back on. And now he's just like, you know what, I can do anything in life. And I think ultimately that's what we want as a parent, for our children to kind of have that bravery, have that courage to kind of go, I am me. This is what I love doing. And I'm not scared to get anything wrong, because I can see where I'm going. I've got a vision and I've got a purpose. And I think it's similar to what you're doing. When you've got a passion, then you're searching for your purpose to make the most of that passion. And time is the really important key, because we don't feel we have it as adults. It feels more urgent, and we have to sort of find that thing. But what we do have as children and as teenagers is we have time. We've got our education system, we're so lucky in countries where it's laid down in law that actually all we have to do is learn and have some form of education. And in this kind, in Britain, we're very lucky that we can choose. It doesn't have to be in school. So what I'm really encouraging parents to do is think about what I call flexing the education system to work for their child, and not accept it that they have to play the old way of thinking.
And it's fine when I think about some of the conversations I have with my own children. Yes, they do go to school, and actually now I'm thinking more about it. But okay, what can I do now to? And I guess as I know me as a person, and how the conversations I have with them, I tell them that you can really be or do anything you want. I will never stop you from pursuing something. So for me, I'm just kind of trying to help them find that thing. And it's funny actually, because my mum would be of the old way of thinking of, they really should go to university. Oh, Ben, don't you want to be a doctor when you grow up? And Ben's just looking at it, no, and no. But my mum's like, why aren't you encouraging, to become doctors or solicitors? But because they're not interested in that, and you see in those professions that I'm not speaking for every single doctor and solicitor out there, but they're very often professions that they've gone into because their father was a solicitor, their father was a doctor, and it was expected of them to go to medical school. But, and you see very high rates of depression within those professions because there's so much expectation on them. And obviously, I know we need our doctors and solicitors, but I guess that's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, equally, we need our, people who are passionate about gardening or driving buses, but making that an experience for people. So that to me is the new way of thinking. It's kind of, there's an old progression path, a hierarchical nature of our education system as it exists at the moment. And what I loved seeing when we were in, with Exploring and now with our framework is our framework Lights On. It's called Lights On, which uses those 3 keys: passion, mindset, and time. It's it equalizes and levels the playing field, because what we would see children come in who are getting the A's, the so-called gifted and talented children, that the school is thinking, what do we do with these children? We know we can't take them to where they need to be. So we'd have them come in as groups, because we used to have school groups come to us. And equally, we would have, I remember one person saying, well, they're really the bottom 30% of, our academic achievers. So we'd have the 2 extremes. And what was so exciting for me to see was that the high achievers would come into our space thinking that they, were going to blow us away. But our exploring learning is very real world. So our expectations are up here. If you come into my space and you can learn at this level or right at that level, then really I kind of go, right, let's take you to the next level then. And the high achievers found that hard. They found it incredibly hard when they didn't get that that external praise or the affirmation that what they'd done was amazing. So they began to, you saw it. I mean, sometimes they were close to tears, not because we were being harsh. We've got a very way of critiquing, but because they'd never heard that their writing or something they had done wasn't good enough. Those who had been failing, really failing, like in isolation, angry, really low self-esteem and all of that, they would start to rise and taste success. And once those children tasted success, they already had the resilience of failure. It was like there was no stopping them. And they were the ones that just began to rise. So it kind of levels the playing field, moving from thinking you're up here on the, and this is the words the learners would describe, we feel like we're placed on this pedestal where we have to get things right. And they did an exercise with them where they wrote some speeches, and what they were really asking us as society was to not put the pressure on them to not get things wrong, to always be perfect. But there was also this sense of responsibility. And I remember one of them saying, but we're the students that get it right. What if we get it wrong? What does that mean for the rest of them? And it was almost like everything was going to crumble and collapse around them if they got something wrong. And so that is, I guess, where I get excited about learning, and what's really fueling me to keep going, because it's not been easy, is just to sort of see that when we take away grades as a measure of success, and when we look and kind of go, but what, Mel, what can you do in this world that I can't do? Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And then what can we do together? And that's the beauty when you start to look at learning, not competitively, A's or B's, but collaboratively. That is when, we used to have this, or we still do have this expression, ordinary me plus ordinary you times opportunity equals something extraordinary.
Oh, I love that.
And that's really what we're going for. It's like, we don't walk through life as individuals. We walk through life as part of a community, part of the tribe that we, choose to surround ourselves by. But for 14 years, we're putting our children into a community where it is judged based on what you can do as an individual. And that to me is the biggest thing that we have to reframe.
Oh, I love it. So what's next, Julia, for, it sounds like there are so many things you want to do, and I'm willing you to kind of get this done as quickly as possible, but, what's next? So I've just put the link up there on the screen where people can find out more about Explorium. So tell us a little bit more about what Explorium is.
Well, it's kind of, it's taken on its own entity. It's taken on a path of its own, really, and it's kind of been guiding me through life. But it started off as a creative learning centre. As I say, when I realised that, okay, I was going to have my children out of school, and I didn't really want to home educate, so I did it the hard way and set up a creative learning centre, and we had children come to us. But that's when I guess I saw, I had this big vision, it's easy to have a vision of how education should be. And that's when I guess I kind of, for the first time, realised it's incredibly difficult to shift something that is anchored down with centuries of DNA of what education is, of what learning is. So even though I've been researching it for years, it was suddenly now putting that into practice was a whole different ballgame. And so I spent 4 years doing that, and we got schools started coming to us. We got based on a school site. And then I realized, in order to solve this massive, massive problem that we have at the moment of our children kind of walking through quite numb through 14 years of education, for our own future, we need to change things. And I realized I had to scale things up really quickly. But what I realized is that the problem wasn't our school system, really. It was that our children's, that's the external learning landscape. What was the real problem was that our children didn't know who they were as learners. So I wanted to shift our focus to the internal landscape of our children. And I wanted to get to the people who would be passionate, more passionate than anybody, to make those changes and to make them fast. And so that's where I started in now Explorium, is like an online membership for parents who want to learn and tap into our framework to absolutely make sure that their children are on the right success path. Now, that doesn't mean they have to come out of school. As I say, with Ollie, just 2 hours a week was enough to totally turn him around as a learner and get those good results back in school. And so that's where we are today, you know, and I guess my vision for where it heads is I am really excited about the potential of having an alternative to university, so that you, instead of coming out with debt of 50,000, you can invest maybe 10,000 in 1 year, and you've been earning money by the end of that year. Because, you know, like, you know, Mel, this whole digital entrepreneurial landscape is so exciting. And if our children have gone through knowing what they're passionate about, developing their skills, you know, building up that resilience, you know, imagine what they could be doing. But for now, what I'm having to do is I'm launching the membership. The membership is going to be open for parents. We've got founding members in. We have proven that parents can take our framework and they can get the results that we were getting. And so that's...
Just to clarify, is this a membership portal for parents, or is it for the children to access?
It's actually both. It's for parents. So I'm coaching parents how to use it. But what's really exciting is that my 2 children, who have been Explorium learners now kind of 24 hours 7, you know, they get the full on platinum treatment beyond VIP. Then my son is 12 tomorrow. My daughter is 14, nearly 15. They've both got their own online courses out. So my daughter got an online course for children who have lost that passion for writing or storytelling. And she's just had her first 20 kids go through it. And it is so exciting because children aged from, I think the youngest in there is 5 to the oldest is 13, are exploring storytelling. It's so exciting. And they're switched onto it. And she's talking to them as the child. And my son has just launched his one, which is Digital Directors, because Seb at 12 is already a digital entrepreneur. He's already making money and having commissions to make films for charities or for digital entrepreneurs. And he's teaching young people how to really learn to create that digital footprint that is going to set them up for success, rather than, you know, all our children want to be YouTubers, right? He's kind of saying, then let's learn the craft, let's learn, you know, filmmaking. And so that's really exciting, because the first week of his course, he's got young children cutting scenes where they're teleporting in the scene. And it's just so inspiring to see.
So he's 12, and what age are his clients?
His clients, so they are, the youngest in there, I think, is 6. I think the oldest is actually 18. So this is what's so exciting. Wow. So because Seb had 4 years out of school, went from year 3 to year 7 when he chose to go back in, his level of, I guess, social and emotional intelligence and professional intelligence it's you know, it's really, really high. And so, and his level of filmmaking is really high. So he is able to talk to the 6-year-old and excite them just as much as he's able to talk to the 18-year-old and help them find their digital voice. So that's really where Explorium is. You know, we are, and also we're opening it up to teenagers. We're finding more parents with teenagers in our community, and now we're starting to introduce them to each other so that we can have this community. So basically it's for parents, but we've now got the opportunities. We're going to do more and more peer-led courses. So children, inspiring children, which is really exciting.
And when are you launching this membership, Julia?
So it's our video series. So you can sign up for our video series. It's called How to Grow a Divergent Genius, Ready for Success in the 21st Century. It's a 4-part video series, and the first of that comes out on the 21st of June. And what I'm really excited about with this is, because it's unlike anything that I've done to date, is that we're actually going to give people the experience of being inside Explorium, because they're going to have their own free members portal and a Facebook group where they're going to see how learning can be and within the Explorium space. And the first video is released on the 21st of June. But the portal is actually going live today. I think hopefully a bit later on, that's going to be open for people to sign up and get inside. And then I just want to be talking to as many people to just really help them understand, how do we reframe things without having to make such a drastic decision to, like, it doesn't have to be home education or school. As long as we can look through a different lens as to what is important, then we can do this together. And we've got the framework that can do that really, really quickly. So yeah, 21st June, the first video.
Where do we sign up, Julia?
So if you go to explorium.co.uk, there will be a sign up there. I think you can do /P//Divergent, and that takes you to the login or the sign up page. And
if you could pop that in the comments afterwards, that'd be great, because I can't do that right now while I'm talking to you. So that would be fabulous. And also what I'd love you to do is post up the links for Seb and Esme's courses as well. They sound great. I want to get my kids signed up, definitely to the digital one. And yeah, I think they sound incredible. So, oh my gosh, this is so exciting. And what about kind of, I think, I don't know how much I'm expecting of you here, Julia. You sound like a superwoman. What about kind of at the grassroots level, kind of at, the education system as it stands right now? Do you have a vision for that?
Yes, I do. And this is where...
Sorry, am I taking you a bit like... Woo?
Well, I'm so excited because I share Es and Seb's story, my children's story, in the video series as examples of what all our children can be doing, because they're just ordinary children. They haven't been hothoused, they haven't been doing, it's slowing learning down. And when you see, I'll put the links up to their courses, and if you do get inside, you'll see, because they're cheap. They're only £27, but incredible value. But I see our schools, this is where I get really excited, and I am talking to some head teachers about this, as imagine if our schools became this incubator of talent, passion, and used that time in a different way and allowed our children to go deep into the skills and use the knowledge and the information that is so available to them. And they started reframing so that it's like, what can they do with that knowledge? How do they think? How can they apply the same information and come out with different outcomes? And if we then started to be able to empower our schools to be free of government finance, but still potentially free to the point of use for parents, by tapping into the talents and creating, taking them into this sort of digital entrepreneurial space, that is I guess the ultimate vision, when we can kind of really free our state school system or our school systems from the anchors to the old way of doing things and become sustainable in their own right. Because at the moment, I think the biggest excuse for all of us to not change things is our hands are tied, and I don't believe they are. And I think the reason we as parents get so frustrated is because it's free. So of course we're going to send them to it, but it's not what we want. And that's the big vision, is I believe we can change our school system. I now know what we're up against because I've been trying to change it for 10 years and I saw it really close. But it's through us as parents and really showing what our children can do that without a doubt we can change it.
Oh,
and that is exciting.
Minister for Education, perhaps?
No, no, I am kind of tapping into my strengths, and for me, what I'm good at is I'm good at being bold. I'm not afraid of failure in any way, and I kind of don't mind putting myself on the line. I don't mind what people say about me, and so if I can just be there as to kind of go, this is what it can be, and this is how we can get there. I feel now it's up to other people to go, you know what, I want us to get there together. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm moving from. I just feel like, I've done so much analyzing and thinking. And I've been close. I've stepped over my edges. Yeah, I've had my mini meltdowns where I just thought, okay, this is too big for me. And I've come back. But now it's about everybody else going, yeah, we're with you. Let's get on board. Let's make this happen. But definitely not politician. Absolutely not. Social entrepreneur all the way.
Okay. Oh, this has been such a insightful, and because I've known what you've done for a while, and I love what you do. But then I guess for me as that parent of kind of happy, good at what they do. But then when I kind of actually look a bit closer, because obviously yes, I'm busy doing my own entrepreneurial thing, and it's funny actually because my daughter, I remember, she's one of these children. She'll come home from school and it's like she's been such a good girl all day at school, conforming, doing as she's told, that when she comes home, it's like she's like, and then you kind of see, this is where you kind of get the teacher say, she's as good as gold at school. She's, very polite. And then I thought, well, it's like a different child at home. And I think, well, actually, because they're not allowed to really be themselves, they're like sitting up, paying attention. And what I was kind of told, speaking to other people, it's like they're just holding in their breath all day long. As soon as they come, it's like, now I can be me. And then I'm going to play up a bit and I'm going to just push my boundaries at home a little bit because I know that my mum loves me and that I'm safe to do that. But actually, perhaps if we had that whole holistic thing all the time at school as well, that when they came home they'd be just the same. Yeah, am I making sense?
Yeah, and my daughter, I'm actually, she needs to come out and talk more, because she describes it as, I did a Facebook Live with her and I said, can you remember back to what it felt like as that 7-year-old when you started to feel your learning fencing around you? And she says, yeah, it feels like who you are isn't valued. It feels like you're losing the core sense of who you are. And we reached crisis point again in year 9 when, if you looked externally, she was doing fine, but she just felt it. She was just being so chained down. And that was the year we actually had Explorium based on site. And it was the best thing, even though I lost a lot of money that year from a social business point of view. I look back now and she reconnected because she effectively started just coming into Explorium, and she spent several months just literally making a dress out of her favorite book, her favorite Harry Potter book. She made a dress out of paper and she just reconnected who she was, and she started writing again. And that's what she says. She talks about it as that's how it feels. It's like, there's no interest in who you are inside as long as you're doing what's expected of you. And other children, it just feels like you're chained down, and coming into Explorium is like the chains have been released. And Ollie talked about it, like he said, I just feel like I'm on a beach with a teaspoon and I'm digging away. And no matter how much I dig or how fast I go, the sand just keeps pouring in. And that is really important for us to listen to, because it's about, it's not about the grades. It's about, are they having opportunity to be themselves? Because what happened with Ollie, I don't want anyone to accept that normal teenage behavior is to come home from school, throw their bags. He'd never connected at school for 9 years who he was. And all of that changed. And, and that is the power of when we look at what we really need to be focusing on through a new model of success, and we kind of see the old one for what it is. I'm not saying throw it out altogether, but don't chase the grades at the expense of your kids' passion mindset, and give them that time to be there.
And I would say the majority of teachers would support you in this as well. I know that my daughter, she had her year 6 SATs recently, and her Easter holiday, she was given a whole bunch of tests to do 2 tests a day, because it's school holidays. And her teacher actually said, I wish I didn't have to do this, but I'd rather not be giving you this. He actually said it to them, but I'm afraid I have to. So
I think that's like, what our children are picking up on. And in fact, I'll put a link to a speech that my daughter wrote, because they know it. They know what they're doing is pointless. So when they say, what's the point of school? We don't have the answers for them. It's just kind of, well, it's to wait until you're old enough to do what you want. And in fact, I gave a lift to someone who's just done her GCSE. So she's just 15, took her to ballet with my daughter. And she got in the car and she said, no more maths. And it was that realization, oh my goodness, Daisy, you're now free to learn what you want to learn. And how ludicrous is that? I mean, it's like a Monty Python sketch, really. But it's that, do you know what I mean? But when you look through the lens, maths is beautiful. And there's a plane going over. And so teachers do agree that, again, what they're up against, and this is what I saw, and this is where I really feel parents need to get in and collaborate, because teachers, they feel their hands are tied. I don't believe they are, okay? It's not the bravest of professions because they're not given that support to be brave. But what we can do as parents is we can start asking different questions and saying, well, my child's not going to do that homework. So if you actually don't want to give it as a teacher, why don't we just see who wants it in the classroom and just let them have it? Or all get behind that teacher to say, we back you. We back what it is you want to do for our children. And, you know, so that's what's exciting. And as I say, the lights on, we've got some teachers in our membership community. The vision you were talking about that I've got is lights on classes. You know, we've done it with groups. We had schools come with whole classes. And the teachers who came alongside their pupils were able to see children do things that they would never do. Pick up a pen and write a script, for example. And they're like, we can never get that child to write. So for me, again, it doesn't have to be like our system's broken and, you know, our teachers are getting it all wrong. It's just like, you know what? It's like sending firefighters into a fire to put it out without the tools to do it. Yeah. A teacher faced with a class of 20 or 30 children who do not know who they are as a learner is just like walking into a room of blank faces. And we can change that as parents. We can help our children come alive so that when they walk into that classroom, they're owning their learning. And so, yeah, it for me, the debate needs to shift massively. And it's exciting. Once we can get that shifting, then we can just start talking about a different route through.
Yeah, well, I've loved this conversation. I love what you do. I think you're making a massive difference, and I can't wait to see how this is going to unfold for you. But yeah, we will put up the links to all the things that Julia has mentioned, and I just encourage you to explore and to find out more about it. And I think, yeah, certainly me, it's kind of opened my eyes up a bit more, actually. Yeah, you're making a massive difference. And yeah, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in, and those watching on the replay as well. And this will also be up on YouTube shortly. So thank you, Julia, and I'll speak to you soon. Thanks, everyone.
Having me. Bye.